Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this mentoring masterclass. We are going to start in just a moment, and I'm going to ask our two speakers if they could, in a moment, please just turn on their cameras for a moment, and asking our team if they could take down the slide, which is up at the moment, so that we can see each other. One of the challenges of meetings like this is that we have an enormous audience, so it's a bit difficult to see everybody who is here. But both our speakers are indeed online, and I can see Professor Eloff. I don't know that I can see Professor Maoto yet. Professor, if you could turn on your camera, then perhaps we'll be able to see you. Perhaps I could ask the ASSAf team if they could please just check that Professor Maoto is online and able to open her microphone and her camera before we start.
Will do.
Thank you.
So, Prof, we're just going to give her a
There we
call.
go.
I think she's back.
Right, no, there she is. We can see her.
Great.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you and welcome. So let me start by saying welcome to everybody who is on this call. We have had a tremendous response to the invitation for people to join this today. And I'm really delighted that so many people are interested in our topic for our mentor masterclass today. We headed this, gave the title, Mentoring for Emerging Academic Leadership, Cultivating Young Leaders with Confidence, Vision and Integrity. This is part of a program of mentoring which relates to our program hosted by ASSAf, which is called the Thuso Connect program. And I'm Stephanie Burton. I am the program leader for the ASSAf overall program, which is the Advancing Early Career Researchers and Scholars program. As a part of this whole entity or this whole program that we have many different aspects of what we're trying to do to assist emerging academics, emerging researchers to develop their careers and to develop the skills and leadership that they need. The Thuso Connect program is an online, open system whereby people who are seeking mentorship can find mentors on a program which allows them to be linked, and then they can meet and they can interact online. But we know that mentoring is very much a personal, an interpersonal, relationship-based activity. So we thought that the master classes would be a good way to bring people together, to allow them to interact, to hear from leaders in the field, and to interact with each other and, of course, to communicate with us about questions and points of discussion. So today we have, as part of our discussion, two speakers from different institutions, both of them very much leaders in their fields. And I'm going to introduce them both, and then we will ask them each to speak for 15 minutes or so about their views on our topic, which is mentoring for emerging academic leadership. And then we will be able to hear their views and then have a discussion. And you are very welcome to put questions into the chat. We will allow people to also raise their hands, but I'm very aware that we have a very large number of people. So if you have a particular question, then I would suggest that you put it into the chat. Okay, so let me introduce first of all our first speaker, who is Professor Satsope Maoto, who is at the University of Limpopo. She's the current Executive Dean, Faculty of Humanities at the University of Limpopo, and of course her roles therefore include leadership, administration, teaching and research, and she actually has a background in education and originally mathematics teaching. She was a founding member of the University of Limpopo Women's Academic Solidarity Association, which was started in 2007, and she is still a member of that. And we invited her partly based on her role of leadership of the program at the University of Limpopo, titled Advancement of Women in Academic Leadership and Management, where her commitment to advancing women in academia exemplifies the values that we are aiming to cultivate through our ASSAf programs. The second speaker that we have, and I would like to say a special thank you to Professor Eloff, because she stepped in somewhat at the last moment when we had to change our arrangements slightly, but Professor Irma Eloff is at the University of Pretoria. She is a highly accomplished professor of educational psychology and a registered educational psychologist, and she is also a member of the Academy of Science of South Africa. She's the founder of the African Deans of Education Forum, and she chaired the Global Network of Deans of Education from 2018 to 2025. And she serves as an adjunct professor also at the University of Innsbruck in Austria. Professor Eloff's leadership career has spanned national and continental and global platforms, and she is certainly going to be, I think, an inspiring contributor to our discussion today. I know that she cares very deeply about mentorship for academics at all levels, and she has a wealth of experience in providing guidance, particularly for emerging academics. So, colleagues, we are excited to learn from both Professor Maoto and Professor Eloff, who both bring very rich perspectives on cultivating confidence, vision, and integrity in the next generation of academic leaders. So let me hand over to Professor Maoto and ask her first to do her presentation, and then we will ask Professor Eloff. So Professor Maoto, over to you.
Let me start by greeting everyone. I just want to indicate, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you.
I just want to indicate that my camera is facing, my laptop is disappointing me, and they are helping me to fix it quickly. Can you open? I'm going to present using another laptop. But I haven't received it. It's there. So somebody is assisting me to quickly get my presentation so that I present from my side.
Okay. Would you prefer if we ask Professor Eloff to go first?
Okay. She can go first as I'm fixing my.
Sure. So
my
let us do that, and then you need not stress. So let me ask
Yes.
Professor Eloff if she would perhaps do her presentation first. I know she has some slides that she's going to share, and we'll come back to you. So don't worry, Professor. We'll come back to you when you're sorted out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Burton. I'm happy to do so. Maybe to just check, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can, and see you.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yep, we can. You
Okay,
can put it into
wonderful.
presentation.
All right, let me do that quickly. Oh, sorry. Back
Perfect.
again. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Professor Burton and colleagues. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. As Professor Burton rightly mentioned, this is a topic that he has been very close to my heart throughout my academic career, on both sides of being a mentor as well as being a mentee during my early years in academia. So just a little bit of an overview of what I wish to bring into the discussion today is I thought to just spend a moment on defining mentorship, and then to some thoughts on the different shapes that mentorship can take. And then also I will share 3 lessons from mentorship that I have found specifically recently when I think of this phenomenon that we call mentorship. So first of all, if we ponder the definition of mentorship for a moment, you know, this is a very generic definition. But in general, most of the time when you ask someone, what is mentorship, they would say this is a form of guidance that's provided by a mentor, often a person with some experience, and it can be either in an organization and often so in educational institutions. However, if we look at this use of the word guidance tends to imply almost a one directionality in this relationship, that it's guidance. It's often also seen as something that's coming a little bit from the top. And I've been very happy to see that in recent years, we've challenged that assumption to flatten out this concept of mentorship, that it is much more relational in terms of people to people and not necessarily something that's coming from the top, even although the mentor might be someone who's a little bit more experienced. But this one directionality, I think, is something that we can challenge even more, because in my experience of mentor-mentee relationships, it's certainly been very much 2 ways, at least, if not multiple ways in bigger groups. So I will share beyond this definition, I will share some of the lessons, the 3 lessons that I've mentioned. But before that, maybe we should also, in addition to reconsidering the definition a little bit, we should also just talk a little bit about the different shapes of mentorship that we may encounter in our academic lives and in our careers. Because certainly for me, looking at this phenomenon, there's a lot of diversity in mentorship. There's, of course, the immediate one that we think of is the formal mentorship programs, you know, and those are excellent programs where there's a designated role of mentor-mentee. It's often funded projects, it's often expanding. But there's also another shape of mentorship that is not necessarily formal mentorship, which is much more informal, and it also tends to develop more like in a organic way, and it might start off at a cup of tea at a conference, when we all dash for the coffee machines to get ahead of the queue at the conferences or the symposiums that we attend. So there's a lot of diversity in mentorship relationships, first of all in terms of it being very formal sometimes, but also there's a big space where informal mentorship does take place, specifically in academia. Then there's also mentorships that is not necessarily predicted. It might be with someone completely outside of your own scientific discipline. It need not even be with someone in your own department or your own faculty or even your own institution, because certainly as a young academic, I found mentors outside my own institution, which was very valuable in the sense that it was based on a relationship of affection often, that started the relationship, and there's a clarity in those kind of mentorship relationships. So I think going into this, it's important that we recognize the big diversity that we see in mentorship relationships. For me, I had the benefit, maybe speaking as a mentee a little bit, I had the benefit of quite a lot of diverse mentors in my life. When I became Dean of Education many years ago, I had the good fortune to be mentored by the very first female Vice Rector of the University of Pretoria, and because I was asked by the executive of the university to do a complete and full restructuring of the faculty. So she was assigned to mentor me through this process, on the one hand, because I still had a big faculty to run while doing this restructuring process. And what really helped me in that situation was I learned the importance of being asked good questions, because sometimes as a leader I was heading this way and then she would come and just ask me one very thoughtful, very reflective question that would stop me in my tracks. And with that mentor-mentee relationship, I certainly learned the value of asking the right questions at the right time. There was a second thing that I learned in that mentorship relationship, and that was that you should not ignore the problems. At the time, I had so many things to do, and there would be these little things that would pop up that I knew I had to pay attention to, but I was just so busy doing so many other things. And she very pertinently told me to not ignore the problems and to attend to that before it becomes too big, because often small problems have a tendency to balloon. So from that relationship, I learned those two very important lessons: the power of asking the right questions at the right time, and then also not ignoring the problems when they start. There was a second mentor for me. She later moved to the University of Stellenbosch. She was the very first female full professor in our faculty at the time. And she dealt with the challenges of, at the time, being a woman in academia and being the only one at her level in our faculty. I saw her dealing with this with a lot of humor. And over the years, I found the use of humor to be such a valuable resource in negotiating the landscape of academia. And then, of course, and this I want to state specifically, some of my best mentors in my career has been men. I think it is faulty logic to think that women can only be mentored by other women. And while that is a very important mentor-mentee relationship, there's also some men, many men actually in academia, who are some of women's greatest supporters. And I've certainly found that to be a strength. So the shape of mentorship, it can take many forms and shapes, and I think the more you embrace it, the better it will be for you in your career going forward. Now moving over to the lessons that I've learned as a mentor myself. And the first one is certainly that the learning for me in my mentor-mentee relationships, and now I'm speaking about both formal and informal relationships, it is not necessarily always the mentees learning from me as a mentor. Often I'm learning from them in terms of the way that they approach a problem or a challenge, or the way in which they engage in the different facets of academia, whether it's research or improving the quality of teaching. The learning in my mentor-mentee relationships has certainly been reciprocal, and I've been so impressed with the young academics, and specifically the women coming through, and the dynamic, proactive, solution-focused way in which they engage with the world of academia, and I have certainly learned from them. Then the second lesson is the huge value of scholarly generosity. This was something that I saw from my own mentors, and that I continued when I became a mentor to others. And that is to share the opportunities, and to do so boldly, and to do so completely without hesitation in all instances. And it's whether it's giving someone a seat on a panel discussion that you are not able to take up, but it will boost their career, or citing their research, or forwarding an email about an excellent workshop that you are seeing from your networks to those that you are mentoring, has certainly opened up doors for them in their careers, but it's also had a ripple effect to others around them, because they then continue that spirit of generosity, of sharing opportunities, sharing ideas, working together and partnering and collaborating on many projects, not only research projects, but also projects of curriculum improvement or other developmental projects. So that's the second lesson, the lesson of scholarly generosity, that I think has also again been reciprocal. And then the third lesson is to tap into the intergenerational resources in mentor-mentee relationships. Earlier this year, I had co-authored a chapter with a very young, very bright academic at our own institution. She's in another part of the university. And I was invited to contribute the chapter to a very good book published by Springer, but I didn't have a lot of time. I had some time, but not the time to act as lead author. I invited her, and she immediately said yes. And then when the chapter came back, we had to do our own indexes at the end, you know, where you search out the keywords and you have to put in the page numbers. And I was responsible for the technical editing of our chapter. But by that time, oh my goodness, I was just so frustrated, because indexing is not something that I like, and it usually takes me like a whole afternoon to just go through that. So what I did to this young woman that I was mentoring, I forwarded to her and I said, I will be working on this, but just give me a few days, because at the moment I'm very busy. And within, I think it was like half an hour, she sent it back to me completely indexed, perfect page numbers. Why? Because she had the resources. There was some kind of a software or that she was using to do the index for us automatically. So that's an intergenerational resource that I wasn't even aware of. There's another colleague of mine. We often do co-supervision of postgraduate students, and she has invested in some software on her laptop where she can check whether all the sources that is cited in the work that we do write together, whether all the sources cited are in the references, and whether everything that's in the references are also cited. I didn't even know this was this kind of resource existed. But if you look at the color of my hair, you would know that that's why. There's just some excellent knowledge, fields of knowledge and knowledge resources that the new generation are tapping into that can be something that's of benefit both ways. So those are the three lessons on mentorship and some of the thoughts that I hope will inform the way we think about mentorship, that it is much more flat and it's much more reciprocal, and we learn from one another in this space. I thank you for your time. If you want to keep in touch with me, there's my email, and you can also find me on LinkedIn if you want. Thank you very much, Professor Burton.
Thank you, and thank you so much for those very clear insights, which I think ring a lot of bells for many of us who have been involved in some of this. But thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. Colleagues, we will now ask our second speaker, who is Professor Satsope Maoto, University of Limpopo. Professor, are you ready? Are you there?
Yes, I'm now presenting using another gadget. And please
Great.
let me know if everyone can see my slideshow.
We can hear you, and yes, we can see your slides. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to greet all the attendees and organizers, the professors, everybody who's here. And I would like to start by indicating that the heights can only be claimed by those who are inspired, empowered, and guided to do so. And all of us would remember the Concorde, the supersonic passenger jet that was through the collaboration of the British and the French. So I structured my presentation by first giving an overview of the project that I lead on advancing women in academic leadership, and I would share some complexities of negotiating the role of an academic and becoming an academic leader using my own experiences thus far, and also share those complexities of the role of an academic leader. And I will not dwell much on the role models and mentors. Prof has already highlighted the role of mentors, and I will share coherent mentoring for emerging academic leadership and how I survived to this far, and also share opportunities for successful mentoring of academic leaders and benefits of those opportunities. Hello? Okay.
Yeah, all fine.
Currently,
Could we ask everybody else to mute their microphones? Sorry, Professor, please go ahead.
Thank you. Currently, I'm leading a project at the university, and the first participants are 20 emerging and 20 established women academics. And the aim of that project is to accelerate the representation of women in leadership positions within the academic sphere. And the core objectives revolve around capacity building, mentorship, and strategic development to foster the growth and advancement of female academics into managerial and leadership roles. The activities that are involved in the project include induction and orientation into higher education in leadership and management. We have reflection workshops. There are quarterly mentoring sessions. They attend conferences and seminars, not at the university only, even beyond the university. And there's quarterly portfolio development session, leadership and management shadowing program, academic leadership and management skills workshops across all levels of management. And we are developing also a consolidated reflection book chapter, and we have also team building. Just briefly, as an independent academic, I'm using myself to share the multiple identities that we share. My other name is Rose, the rose flower. My name, Satsope, means an ugly woman. So you can imagine combination of Satsope and rose. Rose is beautiful flower. It smells nice, but it has got thorns. So my journey thus far, I'm a female mathematics educator. That's how I started. Teacher by profession, assessor, curriculum developer, academic, C2 NRF rated researcher, academic leader, academic manager. I'm a mentor. I was a mentee. At some point, I'm still a mentee. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a community member. You can see the multiple identities that academics bring at the workplace. So sharing the complexities of negotiating the role of an academic. The key complexities that makes success difficult include conscious and unconscious biases. They still persist. But I want to indicate that gender is not synonymous with women. So the empowerment of women can only be achieved by taking into account the relationships between women and men. So the objective should be to ensure that men and women benefit equally. So the complexities are made more by things like work-life integration and identity conflict. So balancing these multiple identities that I share, you can imagine being at the workplace and having to balance those multiple identities. We also have multiple subjectivities. We are struggling to integrate our identities as academics, as mothers or fathers, partners and professionals. At one point, you may value to be a caring lecturer identity in public, but downplaying a researcher identity and prioritize mother-father identity in private at the expense of career development. So there are also promotion barriers. You know what is happening in institutions of higher learning. Sometimes there is lack of transparency and deeply rooted practices that may favor either men or women, and also negotiation challenges. And also there is an unequal opportunity and the class cliff. We are often assigned more academic household, that is high teaching and admin loads, and fewer challenging developmental opportunities. So there are situations where some other people may be appointed to leadership positions during times of crisis, a phenomenon as the class cliff where the risk of failure is high. So we do experience lack of mentorship and the role models. Becoming an academic leader. When you become an academic leader, you have to now balance academic responsibilities that I shared with admin and financial demands. And we have to manage academics and support staff with different personalities, and also student needs from different backgrounds. And we have to adapt to a rapidly changing technological and societal landscapes. So the complexities of negotiating this role of an academic leader. You start being an academic, now you assume a different role of an academic leader. You find that there is lack of adequate training for former academics, and we have to manage a diverse set of tasks, like we are expected to develop curriculum, we have to plan for curriculum, assessments, you name them, even human resource. Those will be new roles from being an academic. And we have to also navigate internal politics and address role. We have to address role overload from constant demands and excessive bureaucracy. And this shift from individual scholarly success to collective management requires new skills like political intelligence, economic understanding, and effective interpersonal interpersonal management. I just want to share with you the leadership roles I played and my mentors, so that you realize that alone in academia, you cannot succeed if people are not there. I started being a coordinator of projects at the College of Education, and it was a project at different projects at provincial levels. And my mentors were Dr. Matumebo Pape, who is from my speciality. You all know Prof. Diane Grayson, who also at certain point assumed the being responsible for Council on Higher Education. And we have Dr. Colin and Diane Wood Robinson. They were coming from UK. I met them when I was doing my master's. You have a peer, Prof. J.K. Masha, and you know Dr. Kopano. And that's when I was the coordinator of projects. And as head of department, the Math Science and Technology department at university, because I also at one point assumed the role of the head of department. I was mentored by still people outside the university. Matumebo Pape, my peer J.K. Masha, Professor John Wallace, who was in Australia, Prof. Morere, who was at UNISA now, at Free State. So you can imagine. So I went through different mentors. And also as the director of school at university, you can see now some other people coming in. I have Mr. M.J. Mbuweni, who also was there when I was the director, but was an academic. You have Prof. Pete Human. I can continue with the list. And now, as the executive dean, they are still continuing to mentor me. Hence, I'm saying I'm also a mentee. I'm going to leave out this slide because Prof addressed the mentor. And maybe what I need to highlight is that with mentors, you know who their mentees are, but with role models, you don't know. Some people may just copy or imitate you without you knowing. So mentorship contributes to a sense of interprofessional support, reflecting the caring and sharing culture. So the mentors are not necessarily the mentee's friend. So the relationship is just to contribute to career success and the development of a particular person to become an academic leader. And you will indeed have an increased satisfaction, knowledge, and wisdom, knowing that there are people surrounding you. And as academic leader, don't expect adequate formal induction or orientation. There is just support at initial stages, but you must learn very fast. You must learn very fast, and you learn from observing during meetings, and you become more accountable. And it's you who will be at fault if things do not go right. So you work for everybody. No matter how hard it is, you develop perseverance. And you must know the university rules, policies, and procedures, because anytime you can be out of track, and you must uphold the university values and guard against being sabotaged. So you have to know more than anyone else and know how to separate the powers. I want to share the coherent mentoring for emerging academic leadership. I started with the Concord at the beginning and indicated that the heights can only be attained by those who are inspired and empowered and guided. So that, if you look at it, it starts with an individual and intrinsic motivation. So if you are en route to academic leadership position, or if you aspire to be one day, it must start from the inside, intrinsic motivation. And you have to be empowered And this means supporting those to whom we give responsibility. And remember, if you are given a role and you continue to delegate, know that delegation is not equal to empowerment. On its own, empowerment does not guarantee outcomes. So you have to be there, but you have to be guided. We can empower the mentees, but if we don't guide them, is not coherent according to me. So we must equip our mentees. We empower our mentees. At the same time, we must guide and equip them to ensure that they have the tools, systems, access, content, processes, information, and skills required to succeed. So they will not succeed if you only end at empowerment. They have to be guided. So mentoring young leaders must be targeted and nourished through a continual support system if they are to succeed. And I like to share with the values that I once learned when I started to be the director. I attended a workshop, a presentation presented by Gambi in 2011, and emphasized that leading, becoming a leader requires leading with the head, the heart, and the hands, employing the rare leadership values, which are being responsible, accountable, relevant, and ethical. But even if those are there, it requires practical guidance through provision of simple and effective frameworks for sustained success and translating theory into practical action. So we have to model what they need to do. If you are a mentor, you have to model what the mentees need to do. And in our case, I indicated that in the project of advancing women in academic leadership, we also develop a portfolio, and each one is writing her own book chapter or a journal article. So in a way, it's not only leaders in teaching and learning and assessment, it's also teachers, leaders in research. So we have to practice what we preach so that the mentees become successful. And true leadership, mentoring of young leaders requires true leadership, which doesn't end at the assignment of responsibility, empowerment. It should include creating the conditions that make success possible. And we must also look at it from the eyes of creating a culture of psychological safety, where academics feel comfortable sharing ideas, giving feedback, and admitting mistakes without fear. If you are a mentor, you must also create that culture of psychological safety. So the mentees must feel free to share whatever ideas they do have. And this is critical for nurturing genuine trust and collaboration, especially in the South African context, where historical and socio-economic factors influence workplace dynamics. So you know what I'm talking about. And how I survived to this far. In 2011, I learned about those leading with the head, the heart, and now as we move forward, the challenges becomes more, and it becomes more complex as an executive dean. So you tell yourself that I want to be the pro. So you strive to be an expert. And when you strive to be an expert, it means you have to accept to be a tea bag. You know, a tea bag is used to being put in hot water to produce quality tea. So you must just be ready to be a tea bag, because the challenges are going to be different from when you are an HOD, the director, just an academic. So the challenges and the complexities are more. So it requires added values to those that were suggested by Gambi. So you have to be professional, passionate, principled, relevant, responsible, resilient, open, truthful, ethical, efficient, effective, accountable, assertive. And when I share with the ladies, I usually say it's a Protea leadership values. It's a Protea leadership values. So every time you must think about these values. From the math background is P to the exponent 3 R2. So you will remember which values you must always, when you come around challenges, to aspire and abide by. There are other values of respect, dignity, integrity, ethical and collective responsibility, and innovation and excellence. You cannot lead if you are not there for the mentees and you don't share with them this. So there are key opportunities for successful mentoring of academic
Professor
leaders.
Maoto, I wonder if I could ask you to wind up, because we have just a little bit of time for questions.
Okay. There are key opportunities for successful mentoring of academic leaders. There are mentoring programs, and in mentoring programs, especially the formal one, there should be clear objectives and proper resource allocation and mindful matching of mentors and mentees. And there are various mentoring models that we have to employ. The peer mentoring, the reverse mentoring, where senior academics also learn from the junior ones, and the flash mentoring. So in our project, we are incorporating all of them. And the leadership coaching, network events and focus. And I can continue with the list, but I want to conclude by saying we have to aim for success and excellence. A successful man or woman is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks others have thrown at him. And the most important ingredient for success and excellence is your attitude, because your attitude determines your altitude. And we must conquer fear, because most of us is just fear. So we must think like hyenas and be hyena-wise and be eagles by staying focused on our vision and do excellently what others think we cannot do, and be efficient and effective and make informed decisions and take a position like this little cat where the bulldogs are there, they are looking. That's where we are. That's the environment we operate in. But incorporating those values will help us achieve more. So this is my last slide. Thank you. Quality is everyone's responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for a very comprehensive and very human view of mentorship, and a lot of advice for our early career academics. So, colleagues, we now have about 10 minutes in which we can take questions or comments. So please do either put up your virtual hand or write a question or comment in the chat if you have a question. Simpiwe, if you would like to, I saw your hand, but I've just lost it. Please go ahead if you would like to unmute and ask a question.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. And thank you for this opportunity. I think as women, we do need such, platforms and encouragements. And I like I have a comment. I like the use of a protea to Prof, because protea is our national flower. It's a symbol of resilience and everything. So I think what I've realized over the years, while I'm in academic spaces, resilience is very, very important, because there is so much diversity. There are so many challenges. Things keep on changing now and again, and we have to adapt. We have to embrace. There's AI. There's a lot. So as a woman, as a young woman, I find it very overwhelming, and I find it very I don't know how to put it, but it becomes very difficult, very demanding because I have young kids. I have to be there for my kids. So it's not an easy space. It looks glamorous. I mean, you're a doctor, a professor, there's a lot of flexibility, but it's really not easy. And thank you for such engagements.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment? Ask a question? Yes, Maria, please go ahead.
For the presentation, and I just want to say that Professor Maoto leaves mentoring because she brought us as women from University of Limpopo on University Capacity Building Program. So I'm very proud of her, and I greatly appreciate, the presentation that she made. I'm one of her mentees. Therefore, she really lives mentoring. It's not just about her research, it's also about practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, other comments? I did see a question in the chat about how to join the mentoring program. If you're referring to the Thuso program, you can find that on the ASSAf website, and we can certainly include that later. Okay, let me go to this next one. I actually can't see your whole name. Is it Mama Huntley? I'm sorry, I can't see your whole name. But please go ahead. Yes, Mama Huntley.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a compliment. I loved the presentation. Professor Maoto has slides, but she was talking from the heart. And I learned her presentation skills and how I envy those who are close to her. I'm from UNISA. How I envy those close to her who are part of this and can be mentored by her. So I just want to say thank you so much, Prof, for standing, because your voice is powerful. The way you talk, the examples you use, the simple pictures like that one of a cat. We always see that picture, but now that you are demonstrating it in a presentation, thank you for that. That is powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not sure that that's a question, or so much a comment about the importance of courageous leadership. But there's a question in the chat now, which is, how does one navigate an unsupportive academic environment where female senior academics make it challenging for emerging academics to rise up the ranks? So how does one manage an unsupportive academic environment? Professor Eloff, would you like to have a go at that first, and then I'll ask Professor Maoto.
Yes, I will be happy to respond. Sorry, the airplanes are practicing here in Pretoria, so you might hear it going overhead for the G20. Unfortunately, this is a situation that many have found themselves in, and fortunately also is the academic world actually leaves a lot of flexibility for you to build friendships and academic collaborations outside your own department, faculty, and also outside your own institution. And I would strongly encourage you to seek out those opportunities, because as time goes on, I know one of the realities is that managers and leaders do move on, but the most stable part of the world of academia is actually the researchers and the academics. So as you build your external relationships, time will go by, and I think it will be a source of safety for you.
Thank you. Professor Maoto, would you like to address that question of unsupportive academic environments?
Yes, I so wish we had time, because I wanted to also indicate how you work around that. Because there is a way on how you can develop shock absorbers. You develop shock absorbers and you shake it off. They know where most of the women and also men and also those I worked with outside the university, they know how I used to cope. Those who don't want to work with you, you move on and work with those who come closer to you. So always there will be people, men and women, you will be surrounded by people. So if somebody is not supporting you, move on. There is always next door somebody who will support you. So you just develop shock absorbers, be a tea bag and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question in the chat about imposter syndrome, and we can come back to that, but I see that we also have a question here. Omfametsi, is it? Please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Prof. I think the question is to both Professor Eloff and Professor Maoto. I'm Omfametsi Sibanda at the University of Limpopo. Just for them, just one or two instances, what are some of the most common misconceptions about women in leadership, and how can we work to change these narratives?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Professor Maoto, misconceptions about women in leadership?
Thank you. With me, when you talk of the misconception, usually I would share the queen bee behavior. So there is a perspective where people think if some women occupy a particular position, then they adopt the queen bee behavior. It's not all women. It cannot be all women. And you will find that some women are driving away because they also fear and think they are being sabotaged. And the other misconception, it's an area where we think with women we can't perform well as compared to the men, of which that one has been proven wrong long time ago. So the problem is with the support. If you see one woman not performing, is because it's being sabotaged or is not being supported. So it's for us to navigate how do you strike a balance in such cases. So we are now in a fertile environment where what used to be misconceptions, the many of them that might be cited are becoming the barriers for women to climb extra hills. It's no longer applicable. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Eloff?
Yes, there are many misconceptions, but the one that I would like to point out is that it's often seen that when we appoint a woman in a top position, that it's almost like a compromise. We've now appointed a woman, whereas the empirical data is showing that it is very good for a system if women are appointed in top positions. They make different kind of decisions than their male counterparts might make, and they also consider a wide variety of aspects within a situation where decisions need to be made. So women are very good and has a very positive impact on a system, and I think there's still some misconceptions there. I do think we've done a lot of work in creating equality for women in the workspace. I'm not so sure that we've done it in the home spaces also, because what I see is women being in leadership positions, but then still doing almost everything back at home. And I think there's some more work for us to do there.
Thank you. That's a very good point. I think perhaps the point to end on. We have used up all our time, and we have always promised faithfully that these mentor masterclasses will not go over time, because everybody is very busy, and we appreciate that. So let me conclude by saying thank you very sincerely to both Professor Maoto and Professor Eloff for their very valuable contributions and comments and the wisdom that they have brought to our discussion today. I would like to just ask you to note that in the chat there is a request to fill in a short feedback form, and we would appreciate it if you would do that. I think, Janet, was that what you wanted to say?
Thanks.
Yeah, okay, good. So, colleagues, I hope you found this useful. Please do feel free to stay in contact with us. Take a look at the Thuso Connect website, which is on the ASSAf page, and feel free to contact us by email or WhatsApp in order to ask any other questions and to let us know of any other issues that you would like to have covered in these mentor masterclasses. So thank you to the ASSAf team who have helped to run this slightly busy session today, and thank you all of you for attending, and thank you again to our two speakers. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Highly
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.